Today we're going to have a go at taking out the dashboard on this 107 SL. The problem that we've got is that somebody's attempted to paint this in the past and change it from beige to black, and we're going to take it out and paint it properly with the proper primers and plastic adhesion. You may need to take out the dashboard for different reasons. For example, if your heater box has stopped working, or for example if you need to repair the front bulkhead. So I'm going to try and break this down into the three different sections. First of all, this side of the car we're going to be taking out the glove box, the under panel trim. In the middle of the car we're going to be taking out the center console, and then at this end of the car we're going to be taking out the instrument panel, steering wheel and the bottom of the dash as well. The first thing we're going to do is disconnect the battery, because some of the switches we're going to be undoing will be live. So the first thing to do, this car's already partially disassembled, it's going to make the job slightly easier for me, but the first thing to do is take off this piece of trim here. Now this piece of trim is just held on by some bolts underneath here. We've just painted this, so we've already had it off and we haven't put the rubbers back on, but that's pretty simple to get off. The only thing you're going to need to bear in mind is that your piece of trim is going to have a light attached just there. So there's going to be cables going through here on a little rubber grommet, and you just need to take that rubber grommet out and the light is just going to hang down underneath. The first thing you're going to need to do is take the glove box out. And to do that is quite tricky. First of all, you need to take out the glove box light. Now I've actually taken this out already, which is easier to show you. So I'm just going to show you how it's actually held in and how the light is held in. First of all, the glove box light, which is here, fits into there like so, and is held in place by a little metal clip which slides in through there. Once you've taken the light out of the glove box, the only thing holding it in is 4 of these little push fittings here, which fit through the holes like so. Now they just push into one of these fittings, and as soon as you push them in, this fitting expands and it's almost impossible. It's like a Chinese finger trap trying to get the thing out again. Proper trim clip. There's basically 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll find a lot of these glove boxes are ripped and torn where people haven't known how to get it out of, got frustrated. But you basically have to get a Stanley knife blade or a very thin screwdriver under there and try and just pry these things apart. But it is difficult, and you may find it easier to actually just cut them out and buy 4 new ones, which you can still get from either Mercedes or the SL shop. So worst case scenario, you could get a very thin blade through there and there and there and there, and just cut them off. But whatever you do, don't try and rip them out or hope that they'll screw out or anything. They're just definitely a pull out fitting. Thing worth mentioning about these glove boxes are they are basically just paper mache all made out of cardboard, and they're quite brittle, so if you leave them in a damp place or crush them, it's quite easy to break them, which is what happened to this one. When it came out the car, it's absolutely fine, but somehow it got cracked and broken, so I've had to patch that with fiberglass. But just do be careful. If it's going to be out of your car for any length of time, my advice would be to put a stack of books or something inside it to keep these distances and to keep it in shape. Once you've got the 4 these 4 fittings out, it should just be a matter of pulling the dashboard straight out, the glove box straight out. There's nothing else holding it in. By taking out the ashtray, and that should just tilt forward and then pull down and pull out completely like that. Once you've taken the ashtray out, you should find behind it 2 Phillips screws, which we're going to have to take out. Let's do that first. You've got the 2 screws out. This piece should come out, but it is attached by a plug here. So the way it comes out is by bending it out this way, and once you've actually got it out of there, you can just unplug that plug there and the whole attachment should come out. This piece of wooden trim here should you ever need to take it out, either because it's faded like this or because you're taking the central console out, is just held in by these two screws here, which you can access once you've taken the ashtray out. Once you've got those out, this piece of trim should just unhook the gaiter, the gear stick gaiter, if you've got one. This should just lift up like this and pull out, and you should be able to get access to all the switches underneath and just be able to unplug them. So that's what we're going to do next. These plugs only plug in one place, but if you're in any doubt, just get a bit of masking tape, put it around the plug and mark which one it is: left hand window, right hand window, hazard switch, wing mirror, etc. Plugged everything. This piece of trim will just lift over like so and is free for restoration or for continuing to take out the center console. This out. You see this little piece here? This fits into a hole just here. So when you're taking this out, initially it's going to slide back. Don't just try pulling it up, otherwise you'll end up snapping off that piece there. To get this trim piece off, which is actually transpires as the incorrect piece for this car, because there should actually be a vacuum adjust switch here for the headlight, and obviously that should also be wood, so we will be replacing that. But to get this trim piece off, you've got to take this knob here out, and to do that, ideally using a plastic trim tool, which I don't have, or a Stanley knife blade or something, very carefully wedge it under, and that should just pop off like so. Next up, you've got to get these sliders out, and these sliders, plastic sliders, they just pull straight out. Pull them towards you. They might be a bit tricky to get out, but they pull straight out. Make a note of how they actually go in, the position of them before you take them out, and also if yours are marked with red or green or anything at the end, make a note of where they came from. We're just going to pull those out, and that should allow us to get that. Word of warning that these little clips can be in there pretty tight, so when I put them back in, I'm just going to put a drop of oil in there, so they're much easier to get in and out next time. Sometimes these clips rust, whoops, there goes one of them, but it is just a matter of pulling them straight out without hopefully damaging this trim piece. The last thing you've got to do is just detach these wires. Now, rather than trying to detach them from the back of these plugs here, your car may vary. This dashboard has obviously been out before and somebody's made all sorts of modifications, but I'm just actually going to detach the wire from here where it just screws in. So once again, make a note of which wire goes where, and then just undo them. The heater control unit should just unplug from the back of there. There you go, that's one of the most daunting tasks out the way. As I mentioned, this is actually the wrong trim piece for this car. There should be vacuum lines going to the headlights there, but we'll address that later. Let's get on with the next part of removing the center console. The car has an armrest which I was struggling to get off. It has a plastic clip that clips off, and it looks like there's a little 7mm bolt that holds it on, but I was struggling to get that off, so I've taken the whole chair out. And once you've taken the chair out, what you can do is just take this piece of trim here off, then we should be pretty close to getting that center console out. Okay, on this car, last but not least, lurking behind this piece of carpet trim here is the last screw holding on this central console, so let's whip that out. These side bits of trim clip into the central console here. You can see the clip in there. So you're going to have to either take the side bit of trim out, or hopefully it just slides straight off. Free now, and we're going to lift it and slide it back, but at the moment the handbrake is in the way, so we've just whipped out 4 bolts. Each bolt has a spring washer at the top and a washer at the bottom, 4 of those, and that should allow us to move that out of the way, get the central console out. I did not want to unclip from the central console, so rather than risk damaging it, I just took the trim and the central console out so we can have a look at how it actually clips in. You can see that that's not actually been put back in properly. There's no clip here, this just is held in there, but here there is a clip, and we're just going to get a screwdriver and carefully unclip that wedged in like that. just pull that and it should come out. Close look at how it clips in, because it's very easy to pull these bits out if you don't know what you're doing and damage the cardboard. Here's the clip that it actually clips into, just here. What you need to do when you pull it out is get a screwdriver over that bit like that, so it just pulls straight out. So there's one clip on either side, well, sorry, 4 clips. One here, one here, one here, and one here. And the trim just slots in here and here. In reverse order because it's easier to see, but to get this trim piece out, there's actually a screw here. You can see the hole on the other side here. And then on the driver's side, you've also got a screw. It's actually got a rubber fitting there. So there's one screw on each side that you have to get out as well. Closer to getting this dashboard out. The central console is out. The next stage is to take the steering wheel off and to take the instrument cluster out, and that should allow us to access the last bolts. Box out, we can have a good look inside here now, and we can see we're going to have to be removing this vent here, which basically is this top vent on the dash. We're going to have to remove these rubber bits here, which basically are the front 3 vents. Steering wheel on your SL, you first of all have to clip off this bit. Just get your fingers behind it and give it a good yank. It should come straight off. The central bit off the steering wheel, it's a good chance to clean it. If you turn it over, you can see there are no metal clips or anything like that. That's just a push fit onto the steering wheel. Got the plastic cover off, you just need to get out that hex bolt there in the center. What I used to do it is a set of drain plug keys, which you'll often need for oil changes, etc. So on this drain plug key, you've got a 10mm on one side and a 12mm on the other side. The 10mm is going to fit in there, and the 12mm you're just going to put a socket on, and that should just come straight out. Once you've got the bolt loose, you should just be able to wind it out. There's nothing special about this bolt, it's not an anti-clockwise bolt or anything like that. In this car I'm just able to hold the steering wheel with my knees because the bolt has actually been out before. On your car it may be a little bit stiffer, and some people recommend wedging a piece of wood so the steering wheel can't move. The only thing I would say, before you actually take the steering wheel off, you get a little marker pen and you just mark where the position of the steering wheel. Just see there, just mark the position of the steering wheel. Now you can just take the steering wheel off. It should just be a simple matter of pulling out this. Now you can get 2 special tools that, I think, where are the holes? There's little holes down the side here that pull this out, but this has actually been out before. It's just held in with a rubber seal and should just pull straight out. If you don't have the little tools that slot down here to pull the dash out, you can take the speaker out here. That allows you to get your hand in and allows you just to push the unit out this way, help it out. Okay, once you've got the unit free, just very carefully take it out like this, because it will obviously have a whole load of wires attached to it. And what we're going to do is disconnect all the plugs on the back of it and then take the whole unit out. Careful note of everything you're disconnecting. Your dash may be slightly different to this one, so I'm just taking a little video to remind myself of what I'm disconnecting and where it all goes back. That plug goes over these 2 pins here. This bulb goes in the first hole there, I believe. This big plug only goes on one way. We've taken out a couple of the central plugs here and here as well. That should be enough. Oh no, we've got one additional earth that someone's wired on, so we're just going to take that off as well. So you've got the instrument cluster out. You can take this washer and this nut off here. And next we're going to move on to the glove box side and take that nut and wash it off. Where is that little nut? Here it is, just up there. I've had this off before, so I might be able to do it with my hand now. Next up, I'm going to take 2 bolts out here. 1, 2. Bolt to undo is that one there. That bolt there. These little sliders just pull straight off. There's 3 of them. We've just got to remember to disconnect these 2 wires here. The headlight switch just pulls straight off towards you, revealing this nut here. You just got to take that nut off, and that'll allow you to just push that through, and that's the last thing I think holding the dashboard on. The last bit of getting this dash out is proving very tricky. I've just clipped off the A-pillar seals. They just clip into some clips here, here and here, and they should just pull straight back and off. I haven't figured out how to disconnect all of this here, so I'm going to take the whole thing out, and we've just got one last bit to take out on this side. It's just catching on something, but I can't quite figure out what. Okay, finally we got the dashboard out, and the thing that was keeping it in on that end was this air vent fitting here, and in actual fact it just pops over the top of that. It's a very strange fitting. It's almost like a spring wrapped around it, but eventually if you just get a screwdriver under there and twist it off, it seems to pop off, and that allowed the dash to come out. But I suspect that's one of those fittings that's easier to get off than it is to get on again. So we've got the dash out, and we're going to set about cleaning it, having a good look at the rest of the car, fixing any little bits, tidying up any bits while we're here, and then we're going to repaint this dash. I'm going to try and put it back in without scratching all the new paint off. Dashboard out, and the first thing to do is to clean it up, get rid of any rust on there. And here we go over it with a wire brush first. If possible, we'll just dip that in a solution of rust remover. We'll clean everything up. We might spray the inside of that with rust encapsulator if we can, but the main reason for taking this off is to get off all the old paint on the other side and paint it properly. A messy process of stripping off all of this paint here that someone's put on, and then we're going to repaint it using proper plastic adhesion and proper primers. This little piece of trim here, this is just held on by 2 bolts, and the speaker or speaker cover that's in there, and we'll start one section at a time. We don't have to touch the top of the dash because that's black vinyl. We're just going to strip all of this paint off. An old paintbrush or a cheap paintbrush, paint on the thinners. You get some good quality kitchen roll, lots and lots of old rags. Kitchen roll is probably better. Slowly but surely wipe it all up. Half of it, but to actually get the paint off here properly and to spray it properly, we're going to have to take off this piece of trim, which is actually held on by 2 special clips. So let's see if we can get those off. Clips that hold this centre trim on are a nightmare to get off, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So that's a picture of the clip there. Basically, you have to lever both ends up, and when you put it back on, you have to bend that back down, and it pushes it down tight. Trim off eventually. It's a bit of a nightmare getting those clips off, but once they're off, the trim just comes straight off. Now that we've got that central piece of trim off, we can get all this paint off and actually prime everything properly. Paint off, took an hour or so to get that off. It's not perfect, but as I say, we're going to be respraying that black anyway, so it doesn't matter. Next up, we're going to mask off all the black vinyl and just leave this beige vinyl, and then we're going to spray it with a special plastic adhesion spray and then we're going to prime it, and then we'll be spraying it black again. We've masked up the dashboard, and we're going to spray it with a couple of coats of Sunox plastic adhesion promoter, and that'll basically help the primer to stick to the plastic and the vinyl. So we'll give it a couple of coats of that. Takes about 10 to 25 minutes to dry between coats. Then we'll put some high build primer on there, and then we'll get some paint and paint it the right colour. Sprayed the bottom of the dash with a couple of coats of the Sunox plastic adhesion promoter, and then we've sprayed this with a couple of coats of Sunox high build grey primer, and next up we just need to spray it black with the proper type of paint. Finally, having primed and use plastic adhesion. We're going to do 2 or 3 coats of Sunox plastic colour black 1. Coat on, and we'll let that dry. We get a couple more coats on, and especially on the bits where we're going to put the dashboard back in, it's likely to get scraped. Having gone to the trouble of taking this dashboard out, you can see on the reverse side of it that there's just the first signs of rust. It's not particularly bad, it's in most cases just surface rust. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean up this surface, just get rid of all the dust and grease, and then we're just going to spray up the back of the metal part of this with some Eastwood Rust Encapsulator, which is a matte black finish, and then that will just stop any of this rust getting any worse. You won't ever see this once it's on a car, but once again, what you don't want to do is just put rusty parts back on a car for them to get worse. You light coats of Eastwood Rust Encapsulator over the worst areas, and that should stop it rusting in the future. Let that dry, and that dashboard will be ready to put back on.